You have to take the first step to get treatment, and you are the person that's blocking yourself from being able to receive and accept that treatment. So it all goes back to the individual.
Welcome to Erase PTSD Now, the podcast, erasing the silence. Here we bring trauma out of the shadows and into the conversation. You'll hear real stories, survivors, veterans, clinicians, researchers. Together we'll explore the healing treatment and the science behind the stellate ganglion block. This isn't just another podcast. It's a movement, and one that demystifies trauma, elevates unheard voices, and inspires action.
Today, we're joined by Omar Ritter, a West Point graduate, Army veteran, and power voice for mental health advocacy. Omar's journey spans military service and navigating PTSD, anxiety, and recovery after brain tumor surgery. Through lived experience, resilience, and deep self-reflection, he has transformed personal adversity into purpose. Today, Omar works to break the stigma around mental health, especially for veterans and high-performing professionals, and to create spaces where people feel safe seeking support, speaking honestly, and healing fully. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me on, Coleen. I really appreciate you.
Your story includes the military service, PTSD, and recovery after brain surgery. That is a lot. What moments shaped you that you understand mental health today? And just elaborate wherever that leads you.
Yeah, so I would say, Colleen, moments actually shaped me. And one of the things that I have realized now that I have time behind me is that as an individual, you have to take that step and realize that there's something going on, and there's times where your brain is being hijacked. And then you eventually have to be able to raise your hand and go get that treatment that many of us so desperately need. And for me, it really was triggered 3 years ago. I just had a bunch of things going on in my life with my friends. So my gunner from Iraq, he committed murder, and then was hijacked for brain suicide as well. And this is one of the nicest guys in the world. And on the other side of the spectrum, I had a friend that was a big business person, Stanford Business School, making multi-millions of dollars a year, commit suicide because of the high stress world that he was in, both from a standpoint of, work, but also he was a military veteran who had been to Iraq and Afghanistan. And, doesn't matter how much money you make, you just cannot outrun the hijacking that takes place in our brains when we have PTSD or mental health issues.
That is a lot of reflection. So that's interesting. Can you identify what, or be more specific as to what you mean by hijacking? Because I found myself going, I wonder if it's minimal, because I think my brain might get hijacked too.
Yeah, and so there's these times, and I can identify them now when I just get upset or fed up, and when I look back on the situation 10, 15 minutes later, I'm like, why did that even upset me? I don't understand why that triggered me so aggressively. And so that's what I mean by a hijack. And I'll give an example. September 11th, or anytime a plane is hijacked, they're throwing the real owner of the plane out of the cockpit. They're taking that plane over and they're doing whatever they want to do with it. And then the pilot becomes the passenger. That's what I akin PTSD to, or other mental health challenges, is that me, the pilot, I'm being kicked out of the cockpit of my own plane. Things unbeknownst to me are taking over and doing what they want to with me. And then when I come to, I'm like, why the heck did I do that? Right. And so that's what I mean, the highs, the lows, etc. That's what I mean by the hijacking.
That makes a lot of sense, and that is a great analogy. So now let's just jump back to something that you mentioned, and that's about the brain tumor. From a personal perspective, I know that when I went through cancer, that it kind of wiped away minutia. So kind of what you're saying about why did I react that way, it was almost a natural flow afterwards, like just the real things that were important. But it's kind of sad to me that took that to reflect
Right.
reflect on that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find that as well?
Well, for me, Colleen, it was a double-edged sword because I was coming back. I got back from Iraq. I was on the initial invasion. I was a light cavalry scout, one-star medal with valor in combat. So I saw a lot, and I came back. And at first, I was trying to dodge the things that I was feeling inside, and so I started self-medicating with alcohol, going out to the club all the time, 5 days a week, rolling up to work with only a couple hours of sleep, etc. And so I was in a really bad place, and I was covering. But then I happened to have a brain tumor on top of that. Right. So here I am trying to recover from PTSD. I'm trying to work with myself, trying to work on myself. Next thing you know, they find a brain tumor. And so now my focus shifts from let me get healthy from this PTSD and fight my demons there to, oh man, I have a brain tumor. I could potentially die from this emergency 18-hour brain surgery operation. And then once I have the emergency operation, now I'm spending 5, 6 months trying to get back on my feet, piece things back together, etc. So that really put the war PTSD thing on the back burner for me and gave me something to focus on in terms of recovery.
That is a lot. Sounds more like a quadruple edged sword. That's a lot.
Right.
But you recognized and you did it. So you're speaking openly about therapy, medication. But you didn't mention gratitude and then asking for help. Can you talk about a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I had a long road to gratitude and to asking for help. So here I am, successful. I made it out of West Point. I'm in the military. I get the brain tumor. As I'm out processing from the military, I start studying for the GMAT. Ended up getting into Columbia Business School, which is Ivy League business school. I
Mm-hmm.
go there. I get a job on Wall Street, and I'm making a lot of money. I'm learning a lot, and I'm still in the recovery phase from the brain surgery. But I never took the time out to say, "Oh man, Lord, thank you for blessing me, for being able to be here today, still performing high after this brain surgery." In my mind, it was always negative things like, "Oh man, you could be better if you have this brain surgery. You could be better if you'd have this military thing behind you." And in terms of just like raising my hand and realizing that I had an issue. So gratitude took me a very long time to get to it. I would say I've only been had gratitude now for like the past couple of years. I got married. I had a kid. My child is 3 years old now, and every day I have gratitude for blessing me, with her and keeping me and getting me to this place where I can have this open conversation with you and put it on paper in my book, West Point to Wall Street, My Journey to Mental Wellness, because 5, 6 years ago, I definitely was not there from a gratitude and being thankful perspective.
That is amazing. And you say that, so now I imagine you also discover joy in various ways a little bit easier.
That's right. Yes. Yes. I now understand like what joy is, and I recently transitioned from banking to becoming an entrepreneur. I do fractional CFO work. And although I don't make the same money I made obviously at a bank, like I'm so much happier that I make a decision with what I do at my time. So again, I have gratitude for being able to work 20 years on Wall Street with horrible PTSD, the migraines from the brain surgery, et cetera. Like Kali, like it's a blessing that I was able to make it through without harming myself or other people. And so I got to give gratitude to that. I got to give gratitude to like the good friends that I had along the way that I was able to call, because a lot of them have been through the same things as me. And I think it's really important to emphasize to folks being able to pick up that phone and make a call, because a lot of times when our friends, colleagues, suicide, they get hijacked, and that hijacker has them commit suicide, what we always say is, "Oh man, I should have called her, I should have called him." And the thing is that it's on us, the person that is suffering, to pick up that phone and call. You can have 1,000 hotlines across the company. You can have 501(c)(3)s like, the one that you run. You can have all this help, but at the end of the day, they're going to be the most meaningful when the person that's undergoing that hijacking realizes that they're not alone. Like, there's a lot of people going through this, and they're able to pick up that phone and call, or get in that car and drive to go get that treatment.
That is true. That is true. With all the analogies on that, putting the oxygen mask on yourself and all of it. I'm sure people are wondering how you figured out you had the brain tumor and then how you actually asked for help.
Yeah. So how did I figure out that I had the brain tumor? This is interesting. So my voice was going out on me. So I used to have a very deep voice, and it was going out on me, shutting off on me. And I went to the hospital, said, "Hey, doctor, my voice is going out." And in true military fashion, the military doctor said, "Hey, just gargle some salt water. Like, you've been yelling at soldiers." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm actually not around soldiers. I'm actually doing admissions at the academy. So I'm on the phone all day talking to parents trying to get their kids into West Point." So I the first time went, got some salt water. Things didn't get better. Waited a couple months, went back, and they were like, "Well, we don't know what's wrong with you." And at this point, I had headaches, and I'm like, "Listen, I need you to give me an MRI, CT scan, whatever." And the doctor was very resistant, but he reluctantly, because it's a military hospital, they're running MRI, CT scans all day. So he got me on the schedule. Week later, I come back, go through the machine. A day later, he calls me and says, "Hey, can you come in?" I come in, sit down. He says, "Something I got to tell you. You have a brain tumor the size of a golf ball, and we need to have emergency brain surgery." So 3 days later, I had that surgery, and I talk about it in my book. Right, it was a real shock to me to go through this procedure. At the time, I was 27 years old. Going through surgery as if I was 75 years old with this brain tumor, right? And so that's the brain tumor piece. When did I raise my hand and seek help? I can remember the day. It was about 4 years ago. I came to work, and I got the news that my gunner had, went through suicide, but also committed murder, and he ended up murdering, his three kids, and then, suicide for himself. And I couldn't believe it. Like, I knew him well. We had just been talking a couple of days before about, getting in shape, etc. And I truly hit rock bottom. I can remember I was in the parking lot at work, and I went back to my desk, and I quickly realized, dude, I can't be in this office. I'm too emotional. And I just started crying. I started thinking about my child, etc. So I I got out of the building as fast as I can, went to the South Charlotte VA, and got some help like right away. They put me in front of a counselor. We started talking, and we got on the schedule for therapy treatment, and then we realized that we wanted to try some different medications. And so that really got me there. That hitting that rock bottom made me raise my hand and say, you know what, I gotta be able to talk about this. I can't keep this stuff bottled up any longer. I really need help.
Well, I'm glad that you got that help and that the right people were in the right places and you took the step.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate.
So what you're saying there leads us into another question. So many people still believe trauma has a timeline or that healing should look a certain way. What do you wish more people truly understood about the recovery?
Yeah, I wish, people understood that for some of us, this is a daily part of our lives. Like, it's no different than putting on your pants or your dress every day. It's something that we have to deal with. And what I mean by that, so me, for example, I take medication. So I take sertraline every day. And so it's no different than making a decision to eat every day. Like, part of my routine is to take my sertraline at the same time every day, to make sure that I am calm and more balanced. But on top of that, I have therapy once a week. And I will tell you, therapy is more akin to like going to the gym because you can always like cancel. Therapy is like you got to go talk to somebody else about how you're feeling. And my therapy appointment is on Wednesday. And every Tuesday night, I'm thinking to myself, how the heck can I cancel this therapy appointment? What can I tell the guy? My child's school is canceled. I got a flat tire. I'm always thinking about canceling this therapy session because even to this day, I still don't want to talk about one-on-one what's going on in my mind. But it's just like going to the gym, right? You hate people. I hate going to the gym still, but once I get to the gym, I feel good. I'm working out. I got a routine. The endorphins are flowing, etc. It's the same thing as my therapy appointment. Like the first 2 minutes, it's like, I'm here again. But by the time I get into 15 minutes, it's like, oh man, like I'm talking to a friend at this point. And my therapist has actually become my friend. It's somebody that I can talk to about what's going on with me that's a bit separated from it. And so I feel a lot more comfortable talking to my therapist about the stresses in my life than I do my spouse at this point because they're able to relate and just give me an unfiltered view of what they think. And I love that.
Now you bring up something else though. You are open and emotionally there for your spouse though, I imagine too, and I'm sure that looks different now than it did before.
Yeah, it looks extremely different, because the things that I'm telling her now, I've already told somebody. So if I'm having issues, I'm open about the issues that are driving me as opposed to trying to hold it in and really put on this tough exterior. And when I wrote my book, I always wear this design, and this design, what it stands for, it's a golden tough bull with a West Point tarbuckle hat on, and this really describes how I went through my military career, how I went through my career on Wall Street, like never showing weakness and on the outside, but on the inside, it's just mesh, like a whole bunch of things just going on inside of me that I really had no control over. And so I was very fortunate that I never ended up being the bull inside of a China shop. That's just by luck that I was able to come out on the other side and have a conversation with somebody like yourself, Colleen.
And that in of itself is amazing. Those are those little things to be grateful for, these things you
Right.
see now.
Exactly.
So in this journey, I hear you talking a lot about the different modalities of the medication, seeking the help, the medical and therapeutic. I didn't hear SGB, the stellate ganglion block. Did you hear about that along your travels?
I've actually heard about that, and it being you can do an IV, you can do a shot to a certain place in the neck. So yeah, I've definitely heard about it, and I am definitely a supporter of people doing whatever is necessary for them to be in a place of free thought and mindfulness and relaxation to take that stress away.
Yeah, and what it does is it resets the amygdala so that fight or flight kind of settles down. It's reset. So there's a lot of things you tend to, some of the things you said, it tends to give you more grace. It's kind of like a jump seat. So you could almost get a jump to some of these other
Mhm.
therapeutic methods. It's just always something to be considered, and I would love to hear it in the conversations more. So you emphasize self-advocacy and workplace culture. What does real support look like, especially in environments like the military or high pressure careers, both of which you had and both of which you saw everything and where I imagine it's very hard. I think it's a little bit better than it was, but it's really hard to ask for help.
Yeah, I mean, so it's definitely hard to ask for help in the military because in the military you don't want to be labeled as somebody with PTSD, especially if you're a combat arms officer, right? So the military will help you, but they'll also help you off of whatever it is you're doing around weapons, etc. Right? So you could potentially go in and love what you're doing as an infantryman, armor guy, etc. But, once you're diagnosed with that PTSD, things might change for you. Your career might look a little bit different in terms of where you're sitting at, right? And so that's a big reason why a lot of folks don't do it, but it's also a much simpler reason. And that's showing weakness, showing that you have care and consideration for the things that have taken place and that your body is negatively impacted. People don't want to give that up. And I was there as well. When I was out processing from the military for my brain surgery, I never brought up my, my PTSD. I only talked about my brain surgery and the effects of that. And again, it took me 20 years after I was medically retired to actually go back and get rated for my PTSD, which I'm glad I did because for some reason I thought it was going to affect not only my military career, but also my civilian career in the future. And it does not. From a civilian side of the house, raising your hand to get help, it's really simple because most of the big organizations, I've worked with some big companies, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, TIA, Kraft, all of those companies for sure, and many others have programs that the workforce is paying into every day. Colleen, like every month, they take money out of my check for medical stuff, right? So medical insurance, et cetera. And so all you have to do is submit a claim, and 24 hours later, you could be sitting in front of a therapist or a psychologist getting evaluated, and the company won't even know about it and getting yourself treated. And oh, by the way, like you've already paid for it and you're getting a extreme discounted rate. I found that out my last year at the bank. And that's when I started my therapy. I was like, well, I don't want to pay for it, but I'm actually already paying for it. And so I was doing a 6-month trial, and it was so helpful that I've just kept doing it even after I've left the bank, and I have to pay for it out of my own wallet now.
Good for you. And it's investing in yourself,
Mm-hmm.
So again, so happy that you made these steps and that you point out that they're polar opposites pretty much, and that it changes the course of your life and your career when you're inside the military and you admit that you're having issues, which brings me to the fact that when you're in the military, you have a singular, a very important purpose and function. And you're trained to focus
Right.
on those things fully. So how did you redefine identity and resilience in your life to how it looks now? Is it what you expected? How hard was that for you?
Huh. Well, it was 20 years of a journey hard, right? I mean, I was taught at West Point and as a young lieutenant, take care of the troops, right? The job is to take care of the troops, especially in combat. The troops eat first. The troops, you got to make sure they get their weapons clean. You got to make sure that they're physically fit. You got to make sure that they're trained correctly. And as an officer, you're going through all these training and things with them, but you're also the one setting it up, right? And so what does that mean? That means that you're the one working those 18, 19-hour days, and the soldiers don't actually see it because you're taking care of them. And so you have this mentality of take care of everyone and don't take care of myself as well. And that translates over to the civilian world, which is why former Army officers do so well at places like banks because we're taking care of the team. We're working all night to get stuff done. We're making the boss look extremely good. And so that leads to both pay and promotion for everyone. And so when you think about it with that lens, I had 20 years of taking care of everybody else to include the boss, except myself. And then when it came time for me to take care of myself, that was really interfering with the work schedule and the things that I had produced before. And so I had to make a decision. Am I going to take care of my well-being, realize that I can't do this anymore, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. And although there's some parts of the job I enjoy, taking care of teams of 15, 20 people, I no longer enjoy that anymore. Like mentally, I need to be in a place where I can take care of myself. I can come home and take care of my daughter and have a good relationship with my wife. And me leading teens at 15 is just not going to do that for me anymore, which is why I made the decision to become an entrepreneur where I'm responsible for me business wise, right? And so I had to raise my hand and just make that decision. And it's not an easy one.
Good for you. That is a big leap too. And you mentioned that good job in banks. Just totally sidetracked, but I also see a lot of military people go into become first responders, especially with the police department. And
Right.
probably because it's the same type of thinking, take care of everybody else
That's
and
right. Yeah.
and follow the rules in the rank.
That's right. The rules, the rank, the structure. I mean, it's probably more so than investment banking. I mean, I'm probably out of my West Point class, I will tell you, I'm the only CPA. There's no other CPA coming out of West Point, right? Because you got to go back, get the accounting degree, study, take the CPA exam. So like, I'm on a road less traveled from a finance and accounting perspective. There's plenty of military on Wall Street sitting at a trading desk, buying, selling stocks, making those critical decisions, much less so in the back office, looking at folks' financials, et cetera.
That is exceptional too, though. It says a lot about you. All right, now, can you finish this sentence? The first step to erasing the silence around trauma is
recognizing that you have to take the first step to get treatment, and that you are the person that's blocking yourself from being able to receive and accept that treatment. So it all goes back to the individual.
great ending to that sentence. And before we go, you want to talk about your book a little bit?
Yeah, I want to talk about my book. I appreciate that, Coleen. So my book, it's called West Point to Wall Street, My Journey to Mental Wellness. You can find it on Amazon. You can also go to my website, omarritter.com, and connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. What my book is meant to do, it's a memoir, and it talks about me growing up. It talks about some of the battles that I fought from a war perspective, but it talks about it in a mental state, and reflects on some of the triggers that I had throughout my life. And the book is really meant for all of us to really be able to have an open conversation about how we're feeling, and really how we're feeling, not how's the weather, but how are we feeling, so that we can support each other and really help that person raise their hand and go and get that treatment. So it's really about opening up conversations from a normal individual standpoint. I'm not an athlete. I'm not a famous actor. I'm just a regular person. And I want everybody to be able to have these conversations and not take 20 years to get there like me, Coleen.
That's incredible too. And I think you're to me, you're an exceptional person. Can you also speak to, are you a speaker and do leadership conferences, I think?
Yeah,
Or-
I do. I'm a motivational speaker, and you can find that on my website as well. And one of the things that I like to do is really talk about some of the things that happen in my book along the way, and some of the things that we've talked about today is, at what point do you raise your hand and go and get that help and realize that getting help outweighs the cost of not getting help, right? That it doesn't matter. You got to put that stuff behind you and think about what's on the horizon. Look to the horizon when you go out there and get that help, and that there's so many other people just like you out there, that need that help and that raise their hand, and it's okay.
Excellent. And am I mistaken, but you also have an emphasis or a focus on kids?
Well, I talk about that in my book, from some of the things that I faced as a kid growing up, single parent home, back and forth between my parents, and how that can also cause anxiety, mental health disorders. And like I said, it was a building block of things amplifying on top of each other. So right now I'm actually a professor at UNC Charlotte. I'm an adjunct professor in accounting. And so I talk about accounting with the young adults at school, but I also talk about real life, right? So I'm always willing to throw the perspective of real life in there as well. And I grew up being a big brother's counselor as well. So yes, love to help the kids too.
Incredible. All right, Omar, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Coleen. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening to Erase PTSD Now, the podcast. If you've been affected by trauma, loved someone who has, or want to be a part of real change, this space is for you. New episodes drop every third Wednesday. Follow Erase PTSD Now so you never miss an episode, and join us in the fight to erase PTSD.